In 1991, I had a very special thing happen in my life. I had been praying for a long time, asking the Lord what He really wanted me to be doing. One evening, I decided to sit down and I just said, all right, Lord, whatever you want me to do, wherever you want me to go, I'm here, I'm yours, and I'll do it. But you need to let me know clearly what it is. It wasn't too long after that, a few weeks later, I was watching the 10 o'clock news, and there was a filler story on about a family practice doctor in Kimberly, where he was trying to gather medical supplies, medicines, things of that nature, to take to the sister city of Appleton in Siberia. I had made, in my own mind, a deal with God years before, saying, I'll go anywhere you want, just don't send me to the USSR. And of course, that's where this was going, and God was like, go. And I knew it had to be God, because I said, okay, that's so exciting. And then I realized I hadn't even called the doctor in Kimberly. And so I got a hold of him and said, I'm in, I want to go with you. And he said, oh, that's really cool, Mary, but we're not going. We're just gathering medical supplies. But if you want to help with that, that'd be wonderful. I said, I can help get you medical supplies, but I want to go with you to take them over. And long story short, 4 of us ended up going over there, 3 doctors, myself, and we had purchased 100 New Testaments in Russian. And my mom helped me get my suitcase all packed, and I thought I was all set to go, and my mom and dad were there. And my dad that night had a stroke at our house and was completely disoriented. He didn't know where he was, who anybody was. And Rod and I went in another room, we prayed, and we're asking, do we go, do I not go? And I went in to talk to my dad, and as God would be sovereign, He allowed my dad to regain his composure and his focus. And my dad said to me, I love you, I'm proud of you, and I want you to go. And with that, he was back out of it, had no idea where he was once again. So the next morning, we left for Moscow. My bag was the only bag that was not searched going into Moscow. In it, of course, were all the Bibles. Had they found those, there would have been a lot of trouble, especially since the guys I went with had no idea they were there. And so we went to Red Square, and that was exciting. We were almost run over by Gorbachev's motorcade, and a guard got me out of the way by carrying his machine gun and kind of going like that. And I was like, oh, I've never had a machine gun kind of pointed at me. The third day, when we had gone to the waiting station, they don't have airports, or at least at that time, they didn't have airports like we do now. They had a waiting station, and the best way to describe it is like a really long gymnasium. Like, we couldn't even see the back of it. But there were no columns, and there were just seats for people to sit all on one floor. And it was packed with people, but you could have heard a pin drop. It was so, nobody was talking to one another. And oddly enough, the guys I was traveling with decided to take off and go look for something for us to drink. So they left me with the boxes in front of me with 750 pounds of medical supplies. I had noticed off to the right by the main entrance that were guys coming in Levi jackets and so on. Found out they were the Moscow Mafia, and they had gotten wind that we had medical supplies there. In the meantime, a gentleman came over to me, a very large gentleman. He was at least 6'2", and then there was a woman that came with him. She didn't speak to me, but he came over and talked to me in English, and he said, "You look like you're a little bit sleepy, like you're tired." And I said, "Yeah, I really am." And I said, "We've been traveling for 3 days and I haven't gotten much rest." And he said, "Well, I tell you what, I'll watch all your medical supplies and you go ahead and take a rest." And I laid down on top of the boxes in my big white coat and fell asleep for 2 hours. And the guys still weren't back that I was traveling with. And he was still there. When I woke up, I was kind of disoriented. And he said, "Did you rest well?" And I said, "I really did. Thank you so much." And the lady was just smiling at me. She never said anything. I reached in my bag because Belen had sent some little trinkets along for me to give people I met along the way as gifts. I had my bag right in front of me, so I just bent over, reached in, dug around for a couple seconds to grab something. And when I sat back up to give it to him, he was gone. He was nowhere to be found. There was no place these two people could have gone. And I was dumbfounded, but it didn't dawn on me that it could have been an angel at that time. Not until I came home and one of my friends, who does a lot of missions, smiled at me and she kind of started getting teary, and then she just went, "Mary, that was an angel." And I was like, "Oh, it might have been." And her husband, who's in medicine, went, "No, that was an angel." With that, we got back on the plane and went to Kurgan, our sister city. And while I was there, you could just sense the feeling of heaviness and sadness, fear everywhere. And Siberia looked a lot like Wisconsin, almost exactly like Wisconsin. There was a secretary there, and she and I got to have a few minutes alone, and I noticed she was wearing a necklace with a cross on it. And I thought, "That's so brave." And I pointed it out to her and just went like this, and she went, and I was like, wow. Because the KGB was still very much in effect. And my mom had helped me figure out how to conceal the Bibles I was carrying. And I pulled one of the New Testaments out, and showed it to her. Her demeanor completely changed. Her eyes started tearing up. She smiled, and she put her face in her hands, and she started taking off her jewelry to give me in exchange for the Bible, because over there they were selling parts of Bibles for $250 to $400 American dollars. And I said, no, that's fine. And was able to pull out a couple other Bibles and give to her. And after our whole trip was over, I was trying to figure out what was really, what did we really accomplish? And it dawned on me that maybe what it was there was a woman who was diligently praying to have the Word of God in her hands in a place where she couldn't get it, but she didn't give up praying. And then over in Wisconsin somewhere, there was somebody praying to be used by God. That's my message to everybody, is that if He would use me for something like that, all you have to do is make yourself available and say, "Here I am," and He'll take care of the rest. And He seriously did, totally did.